rise for the pledge. Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Dave, do you have any questions on attendance?
What would your name be?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm Katie Sanford.
Katie Sanford? Okay. Thank you.
And do we have Brian, any additions, corrections to the board agenda?
I had one correction and one addition. A correction to JAG Pride, just some rewording of number 2. And then in addition to the agenda at the end to talk about the potential of a special school board meeting later in November.
All right, so we have an agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes 7-0. Open forum, rules for open forum, 3 minutes per speaker. Open forum shall not take more than a total of 15 minutes. No complaints about individual staff members. All presenters will conduct their business in a manner that meets community standards for decorum. The board will not take action on items presented in open forum. Did anybody sign up, Brian? Does anybody wish to speak during open forum? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or need anything pulled from the consent agenda? Brian, is there anything added?
No.
If there's no questions, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
Approve it.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Moving down to bills. If you have questions on the bills, please state the page number and the bill number. I have 3 questions.
Okay.
The first one is, shoot, I didn't write the page number. But 91363 for Halo Transport for $17,390.
That is a student, transportation for a student that we transport, I believe, down to Lindstrom, Minnesota. It's a special education student who needs some transportation and paraprofessional support.
Okay, that was page 3 if anybody's looking. Next up is check number 91299. Page 5 for $84,939.29.
That is one of the bills of probably some more to come for the high school roofing project that was approved with the capital bonds from 2017. We do anticipate some more bills coming for the high school portion that has not gotten here yet. We anticipate the high school bills being up to about $460,000, I believe, for the high school roofing, if I'm correct on that.
And we had 200, well, if you go back to May 25th is what I found. The board approved the high school roof to be done. And it was $235,000 left of the bond, but it's really only $200,000 then?
We had about $200,000 left of the bond when we came into the school year. The high school roofing project, I was told, was budgeted, they thought was gonna come in between $350,000 and $400,000. We believe the high school portion alone is gonna come in at $460,000. And we budgeted for, like I said, $200,000.
Did the district office get change orders that the board didn't see that needed double?
Nope, we ended up adding HES as a roofing project this summer. There wasn't change orders to the high school that caused it to be double. we did a second roofing project at Hinckley Elementary School.
So that would be check number 91353 for $391,124.
Correct. Correct.
So the board did not approve the HES roofing project.
I can't find anywhere where the board approved HES roofing. I've looked back at facility committee notes and board agenda notes. I haven't been able to find anything that the school board approved the HES roofing project.
So why was the HES roofing project added?
I can find communication last end of April, early May, where the previous administration was asked for a facilities committee meeting to talk about the HES roof project. The answer was the board's already approved the roofing project. I don't believe that, the realization was that we were adding another roofing project to this. I believe that both people felt they were talking about the same project when in reality they were talking about two different roofing projects. So I'm trying to be careful with not using public names and things like that. The approval was given to the old head of maintenance to go ahead with the bids for the HES roofing projects. And then it was approved and that's when it happened.
So the total roofing project for the high school and Hinckley Elementary School are $857,069.17.
Correct.
And we have $200,000 to pay for it.
Correct. We do believe we have two bills that we can challenge, but best case, that's gonna be another maybe $50,000. That Damien, I did reach out to Damien, who works with ICS and kind of was the project manager. Those of you who did the ICS tour a couple weeks ago, Damien was one of the ones that was here. I reached out to him. He advised Joanne and I that maybe there are two bills. It looks like we did get overbid or overpriced on one part of it or billed twice, but that was like $37,000, and then maybe there was another $14,000 bill that hasn't come yet that we could challenge. So when those came end of the day, Thursday, I will call them tomorrow morning. I have not called yet, but I wanted to get through this meeting first.
Brian, was the Hinckley Elementary School part of the original verbiage on the bonding?
I believe we had roofing in general. I need to go back and see the bonding language. I haven't seen that yet. I know we had FES in there. I did find that. FES was approved, the high school was approved. I don't remember if portions of HES were approved or none of HES was approved. So I will need to find that, if HES was part of the bond facilities project.
Okay.
So my understanding, Brian, is that the facilities committee did not discuss that, right?
Correct.
Okay.
What I found is that they did not meet. The HES roofing project never came to the facilities committee, which would have been the step before the full school board. So it never got to either of those steps.
Okay, thank you.
That would make me believe that it wasn't on the,
I don't believe at least those portions were on the bonding project. I believe, by the emails I have seen, they thought possibly there was more money left, and there wasn't. And then there was some confusion over there being two different projects instead of they both kind of thought they were talking about the same project, is what it looks like in emails I have found. We have found, since we found this information, we have found that we can move some capital dollars around through E-rate, some things that we had in capital that could move to E-rate, and some other of our COVID dollars that we could move that total of up to about $100,000. We know we're getting in, which I had updated the board over the weekend, about $44,000 of unplanned revenue coming in. Later in the agenda, we're gonna talk about some other capital things with buses and transportation. There could be some movement and savings there to help with this. There's a possibility of using some learning recovery dollars to help purchase vehicles. So, you know, there might be some room that we can look at, up to $50,000 for that. We know we got insurance money back on the two vehicles, and the reason I bring up the vehicles is because that's capital dollars that can be used on facilities, transportation, or technology, so it kind of fits in that same category. But as of now, we have found about $140,000 since we realized kind of what happened this summer.
I guess one question I have is, if it's not part of the original verbiage of the bonding, my question would be, where did it come up in the conversation then amongst the superintendent or anybody?
The email I could find is the previous head of maintenance had asked for a facilities committee to talk about the HES roofing project.
Okay.
The answer was, there's money left for the roofing projects. And when I kind of questioned, the previous administration did not realize that they was talking about the HES, thought it was talking about just HFHS, didn't realize it was HES included as well.
And then ultimately, it wasn't the superintendent who signed off on the bid to proceed with the work? right?
The bidding was signed off by the previous head of maintenance, but who had approval from the superintendent. And I can see that in emails.
Is that a standard practice that we have?
No. Typically, it's the business manager or the superintendent that signs off on that.
Okay.
One of the things going forward is that I'm gonna have both the business manager and superintendent sign off on that. An initial idea I had was any dollar amount, and this is just a number I was throwing out there, doesn't have to be set in stone, was anything over $5,000. Both the business manager and superintendent sign off on. And the reason I picked that is because especially in the summer when we're doing large Amazon classroom supply orders, those could add up, but maybe not be a major project. Certainly if we want to consider a different dollar amount, we absolutely can, but I plan in December to bring a policy for that forward to the board where both the business manager and the superintendent sign off on anything over, and like I said, my initial starting point was $5,000, just so both are in the know and there's some more checks and balances.
So in,
then,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead, you go.
I was just gonna say, so in the previous administration, obviously was not aware until recently then about what had happened?
Correct.
Because I mean, that's a
As
pretty big whoops.
soon as we found out, we being Joanne Bruns and I, we reached out to both previous head of maintenance and previous superintendent. Joanne and I had a virtual meeting with previous superintendent and did not know that that was 2 projects and that HES was added.
So we have to pay it, and if my
Projects are done.
subtraction is about correct, it's about $512,000.
With that additional 144 that we found, correct. There are some possibilities, which we're also gonna talk about further in the agenda with possible levy dollars, which I'll go into more detail when we get to that. Right now, if the school board decided to levy the max, at least as of the writing of this board agenda, we feel that would be a $475,000-ish increase. We've learned some more information about that, which I can go into detail a little further into the agenda.
Well, the point is it needed the roof, correct? Otherwise, and it's just a confusion on when exactly, and so it's not like we're buying something that we didn't need, it's just a surprise on how to pay for it.
Correct.
Brian, do you know how old that roof was and what the life
I
expectancy was?
haven't been
on it?
able to find that. I believe the new roof is supposed to be 20 to 30 years. I don't know how old it was. I wasn't able to find that yet today.
Okay,
I will find that for the board.
thank you. And Brian, was there a particular document that raised a red flag in Joanne's mind that she thought we've got a problem?
Well, when the extra bills came in, so even though $200,000 was budgeted for, at least what we had been told was these roofing projects should come in between $350,000 and $400,000. When we started seeing another $300,000+ bills coming in, there's a little bit of confusion with the company too. So Tremco is kind of the roofing company, which sometimes goes also by WTI, but McDowell is like a subcontract with that company, so they were sending bills. So that was the confusion, is we weren't expecting bills from McDowell. McDowell was the one that did one of the projects. Tremco billed for the other roofing project, so there was a little confusion on our end.
Okay,
And that's why we initially thought maybe we're just being double billed,
sure.
but as we dug in, it was two different projects.
How much of that was double charged? You said there was some,
The only thing Damien thought was, a $37,000 bill and a $14,000 bill we should question. Which his mind, there better be some very strong justification, because it looked like we had got double billed, in those areas, so we will do that now that those bills have come in.
in the future, you say that the superintendent and finance need to both sign off on it.
Yeah.
But then what's to stop the head of maintenance in the future just signing off on something like happened in this case, and them doing a project, and they don't know our,
I mean, part of that I will, when we get to leadership meetings, things like that, that will be taught to the leaders of, or explained, taught, maybe is the wrong word, but we'll go through that at leadership meeting. I've already started working with our technology director to kind of create a flow chart, even if you're considering any projects, just where that money's gonna come from, what it's for, is it planned budget money, is it new project? Just so we have some better communications and better systems in place from the ground up with these projects, so we don't get caught off guard with a surprise. But that would be something that we would hit as our district leadership team too, that they could then, those managers could bring back to their staffs too.
So, is there a motion to pay the bills?
I'll move that.
And I'm looking for a second.
I'll second
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is superintendent's report.
I'd like to start with some Christmas breakfast sign up. If we're gonna change the menu a little bit this year, the Christmas breakfast is always the last staff day before the holiday season. We're gonna go with pancakes, eggs, sausage, hash browns, fruit. We're gonna go with a big hearty breakfast this year. You're welcome to help donate if you'd like any ingredients, dollar amount, sign up to help. We don't have to take a lot of meeting time, but if you wanna let me know kind of what you'd be willing to do to help, and if you're able to help come serve, set up, things like that. But it's slated to be, I think, December 22nd, if I'm saying the right date. And we start as early as 6:30 a.m. But, so if you wanna just let me know what you'd like to sign up for, or if you're able to help, we could certainly take care of that way, so we don't have to eat up a lot of the school board meeting time for that. Big part, and I was glad we didn't get much more snow today, because I knew this was in the board agenda today, but our plans for if we have bad weather, the principals are working with their staff on this. It's gonna be very similar to what we did last year. If we have bad snow or bad cold weather, we're gonna still call e-learning days this year. The principals are working on setting up virtual opportunities for our support staff, at least 2 days worth of that. So one of the things the support staff asked for in their negotiations was an opportunity to do some training instead of lose that pay during that pay period. But the communication will go out via Remind, via social media, to the radio stations, to the local newspaper or news stations as well. And we'll try to do that as close to 9 p.m. the night before if possible. Certainly if things change overnight, then, Ms. Beck or Sarah Beckrich and I would go out, check the roads, and try to make a decision by 5 a.m. the next morning. But just, the principals are working with the teachers now on kind of the expectations, and then hopefully we don't have bad weather often during the school year, but that's kind of the plan for bad weather days, if and when they come up this winter. Otherwise, questions for me in my report?
not necessarily for you, but during elementary conferences, is that something that's gonna be talked about to parents, or is it only going out on Facebook and like, is something gonna be sent home to parents just saying this is what we're gonna do? I know it has in the past.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I can remind our teachers to talk to them about choice boards and what that will look
Right.
like. during conferences. I do that right now. It's a good idea.
Any other questions for Brian? Next up is high school principal report. Kim?
Good evening. First thing on my report is the subject matter approval for next school year. And so I linked in the changes, and I'll just kind of highlight a couple of them. The first one is we would like to change for the post-secondary option contract, instead of giving students an F, which affects their GPA, a no credit if they drop within before the 6 weeks of class. So that's just one change there. For adaptive PE, they want to cap the class at 28 students just because of the activities and the different things that they're doing. And then they want to change the prerequisite to have a B- or better in PE 9th or 10th grade. The Jaguar angling class, he'd like to cap that at 18 students for next year just because of the field trips and all the different things that they're doing. Having a smaller amount of students helps that class be a little bit more efficient. There's a change to the prerequisites for college stats, just removing the score of 76 or higher for elementary eligible, or 50 or higher for college math portion, just taking that out. Life science just wants to update the description for the class, so that's just a change to the description. For family consumer science, 7th and 8th, just a couple changes, adding just a couple changes to the verbiage of the class. And then for culinary 1, she wants to change the description to this, so completely change the description to that. For world issues, she's not gonna be offering that in 23-24 as usual, and then offering the general psychology elective instead. Also not offering Ojibwe Culture 1, but we'll be offering Ojibwe Culture 2 instead. So it's just an every other year for both of those classes. Industrial technology and welding, just removing a couple of words from the course description. So those are just some of the changes to those classes. ITV, there's a couple additions, offering Native American Literature, College Comp 1 and College Comp 2 as ITV additions would be that. And then the new college class, or the new class additions for next year, the proposal would be to offer wildlife ecology for 10th through 12th grade, a semester elective, an introduction to culinary 2, so students that take culinary 1 would have the option to take culinary 2. Offer a college painting, first semester college class, and then Ms. Beckfar would like to offer a Native American literature course, and so she linked in the course description, prerequisites, the text she would use, the focus, so that you kind of have a little bit more information on what that class will entail. And then she would also like to offer college creative, the creative nonfiction writing, and then the poetry as a college elective. So those are the additions, and then removing AP microeconomics, and then just a couple other, removing intro to literature, because she's gonna do those other classes instead. So those would be the classes that she's removing. Any questions for me? Not a whole lot.
Does anybody have any questions? We'll just, we'll approve this and then move on to, because I think you have 2 in your
Yep.
report, right?
Yep.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions regarding subject matters? So I'm looking for a motion to approve the proposed changes.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Next thing is ACT results. We had 24 students who took the ACT, and Katie's been trying for over a week now to get the results. She has individual student results, but she doesn't have the overall results, and she's been working with the company. They're having some glitches, so once I get that, I will send that to you as soon as I get that, but just know she's working on getting that. Last month, we had quite a few field trips, which were really great. There was the Epic Career Exploration at St. Cloud for 10th graders, and Katie said it was just like one of the best experiences for kids. They were able to see a large variety of careers, a lot of hands-on things that they got to do, so it wasn't just listening to a speaker, they actually got to do some of the things that the careers would entail, and they had a lot of excitement from students. The industrial tech classes went to Pine Tech for manufacturing day and toured different manufacturing companies. We had Rachel's Challenge last month with our 10th graders, which was really great. Thanks for everybody who volunteered. The angling classes got to go to the DNR to see them stock the ponds or the stocking ponds as they were drained. Also, NASA went to the Goose Gardens to learn about native plants last month. So we had a lot of really cool field trips for our students. Just an update on Amplify. While Amplify is going really well at the elementary, our 7th and 8th grade classes are kind of struggling. Our teachers are struggling with the new curriculum, and just kind of wanted to update the board on what some of the challenges are and what we're doing. In the meantime, the majority of the program is really technology based, and they're losing a lot of time due to internet issues, just the lack of engagement with the online, trying to get kids to navigate the program, just kind of learning the program has been a challenge, so they're losing some kind of instructional time due to technology. The timeline for a lesson is 47 minutes, they have 45 minutes to do it, plus transitions, plus all the other stuff, so just trying to fit it all in has been hard. The vocabulary app's been really overwhelming for students, and also there's the SEL component. It's with all the online stuff, they're not really getting their hands on texts, in actual books. Everything is really online based in 7th and 8th grade, so just trying to get students to learn and kind of get caught up on it. So kind of a solution for the rest of the year is to continue using the Amplify curriculum, but trying different pieces out, and just taking more time to kind of get students used to the different pieces, giving teachers more PD, having them go out and watch some 7th and 8th grade teachers who are finding success, working on differentiation in the classroom, so having the teachers pull kids and working on small groups to make sure we're meeting their needs, getting them to where they are and getting them used to the different components in a more small group setting versus taking kind of the whole class time. So we're not using it quite as it's prescribed at the moment, and just giving teachers some time to kind of use components of it and getting kids used to it and building on it versus just jumping all in, so that we can have more time for differentiation, small group instruction, really focusing on reading and things like that in the classroom. Any questions on that? All right. PLC updates at the high school. We're continuing to do our PLC rotations, where we're doing grade level meetings, where grade level teams meet, look at students' individual needs, look at challenges students are having, talk about it as a team, what's working in certain classrooms, and then building kind of an intervention plan. It's working really, really well. Joel is doing an excellent job facilitating that. We also have department time, where department teams are looking at standards and aligning curriculum. We provide professional development, really looking at a differentiated professional development, so it's not one size fits all for all teachers, but they get choice in what they want to work on. And then also having that MTSS data-driven discussions, looking at data, whether it's behavior data. We just last month looked at FAST data for reading and math, and talked about what we could do school-wide to support students in reading and math in all content areas. So that's what we're doing for PLCs. We had the Veterans Day concert on November 2nd, and it went really, really well. I just kind of updated the board on when our next concerts will be. 7th grade band will be performing at the winter concert, and then all the concerts going forward. And then the last thing before Ari and Jordan are up is I'm looking for approval for out-of-state travel for the junior and senior trip to DC. The dates will be March 28th through April 1st. The estimated cost is about $1,100 per student. Flights and hotels are tentatively booked, and looking on confirming activities. We have 59 students signed up with 9 chaperones, and itinerary will be shared out once it's finalized with the board. So I'm looking for approval for that.
Kim, is that number 59 higher than usual?
I believe
Yes.
so,
Okay.
yes.
Much higher.
Okay, good,
Way higher.
good, okay,
Are
thank
there
you.
more things open in DC this time? Because I know last time they went, there wasn't a lot of things they could do because of COVID and stuff.
I believe so, yeah.
I think on the sheet it said that most everything was back open, Shelley, that came home. So Kim is looking for a motion to approve the senior junior trip to DC.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And last up, Ari Jordan.
Alright, so quarter one has ended with last week, I believe. And fall sports has concluded as well with successful seasons. Winter sports are right around the corner with girls basketball starting today and boys basketball captains practice starting today and their regular season beginning next week.
Currently, we have the fall play going on. Our performances are this Friday and Saturday, and Ari and I are both in it. It'll be at 7 p.m. It's been going very well so far. And also, like Mrs. Hinckley said, we had our Veterans Day concert that went very well, thanks to Mr. Storm and Mr. Shinsky.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Ari and Jordan. Next up is elementary principal, Bonnie.
Start out with, some rougher news. We are once again out of space. Our third section of preschool, which meets 3 days a week, the numbers have kind of expanded and we are out of space. They are in a smaller room which has quick access to a bathroom, which is very handy for 4-year-olds. So the only thing, we're looking at some options as to how to increase that space. The teachers have said they would rather have more space than have that quick access to a bathroom. I mean, that's kind of how desperate they are. And I think that's what's best for kids, so stay tuned, we're looking at some options. It's gonna, as you move a domino, lots of things fall, but we're gonna try and get creative and see what we can do there. With that, you can kind of see, I just put in our class sizes at HES and FES. You can kind of see kind of where we're at. The red across the board is grade levels at FES, and then on the bottom right-hand side, you'll see Rita and Shayna share 18 kids together. Chris, with some help from Kelsey Smith, have third and fourth, and they do, Ann Ryouts also teaches 3rd grade ELA. They have 13 kids, so they're teaching about 6 apiece for ELA. And then Mr. Steele and Miss Smith teach 5th and 6th ELA. So they're teaching about 10 and 6 is how that division is. So just looking at ways to provide some equity between those two settings. One of the big barriers is ELA, and we're very passionate and very driven to make sure we're teaching Amplify with Fidelity, and that needs to be done at grade level. K2, each of those have 120 minutes of ELA every day, so it's hard to do. Even if there's 3 or 4 kids, that's what they get at grade level is 120 minutes per day. So just trying to get creative on kind of how that could look. Our fundraiser we did with Cherry USA this year, and I think it just shows the passion our community has for our kids, to help our kids. We sold almost $22,000 worth of stuff for our kids. Great opportunity for our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders to put money towards their Wolf Ridge trip. A lot of them have already paid for their trip, which is phenomenal. So if they take advantage of that opportunity, it's there for them. Halloween days at both settings were good. The PTO, Finlayson PTO put on their family fun night, and the Lions were back in person at HES. Let's see what it was for Halloween. It was really fun to see the people back in action. We had our first quarter reward day, so any student who did not get a referral during quarter 1, Mother Nature played a little trick on us. We do have a limited amount of space, so we were going to do kickball, like a beanbag tournament, and then have some board games and stuff in the cafeteria. We all got scrunched in the cafeteria. There was just a couple grade levels. It worked out fine, but we want to do that every quarter and just celebrate some of that positive behavior that we're seeing in the class. So You can see some opportunities. Our crossing guard program continues to grow. We have 76 students that are involved in that 4 through 6 right now, so that's really awesome. As Angela had mentioned, we have conferences coming up. One of the things with Amplify, they have a big homework piece, and we have seen a lot of results coming back in from parents who are talking about their kids doing their homework, and kids are getting excited about what they're learning in school. So it's pretty fun to hear those conversations. A couple things we don't have on there, our sick numbers at HES are kind of blowing up. I think we had almost 100 kids out today and about almost 10 staff, so we're gonna do the best we can to stay in session and keep plugging along. From our school, we've had a ton of good feedback on Amplify. Again, and the math programs that we're piloting, so it's really good conversations. We hope to have some teachers come to a future board meeting and share that with you guys, so it's great to hear the excitement in their voices as well. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Bonnie. Does anybody have any questions? If not, next up is community ed. Becky.
Thank you, Jody. Angela's gotten off to a very good start, so there's lots to do, and she's really doing it. Reviewing a lot of our protocols, our forms, and we're redoing a number of things, which is just all very positive. So I think we're off to a very good fall. We had a mother-son bowling event at the Sandstone Lanes the day before Halloween. We had, they suggested 40 people would be kind of about their max. I think we had like 42 that signed up and 38 that showed up that day. So we just had a wonderful afternoon. I'm sure we'll do that again. You can see the number of our other classes that have happened so far this fall. I just wanted to highlight that high school games club. Mr. Ford has started that. He's just volunteering to do that. He had 7 students, and I'm sure that will grow. That's on Fridays right after school. Coming up, we've got another defensive driving course. Could have used that this morning. And Christmas craft coming up. That's coming up soon. A pool beach party. Learned cross-country ski, and that's tied in with Maura Vasilopit. And then intro to hockey and learn to skate. That's with our Hinckley Hawks. They are volunteering to help with that. Youth wrestling with our co-op with Pine City is coming up. Adult co-ed volleyball and open gym. So there's a lot coming up that we're excited about too. And I agree with Ms. Scullard. It's really fun to see people starting to come out again. It seems like they're just really coming out and getting together. We got a new bike at the fitness center that was purchased with district funds this last year, and that's up there and ready to go. Tomorrow night we'll find out, we applied for $5,500 in grants through the arts grants, and we'll find out tomorrow night if we get those. It looks positive. One's for a Monroe Crossing concert, the other is for the Wizard of Oz. That'll be here at the end of August for our youth. So excited about that. I just wanted to add one postscript. She doesn't know I'm going to do this, and she doesn't need to, but to Ms. Henke's report. Ms. Krieger with the FACS program has really worked hard to make that culinary arts a program of study. And for the last 20 years or so, I've been involved in writing the Carl Perkins grant, which gets federal funds for career tech ed. And that involves 7 districts, of course, one of being ours here, Hinckley-Finlayson. But she received, if you haven't been in a room lately, I don't know if you've seen it, Brian, but it's an $8,600 new, it's a huge, it's a market industry, it's industry standard refrigerator. And that was all purchased with federal funds. And so that, not district funds. And last year she requested about $7,500 to get these 6 stainless steel cabinets for food prep, and that was approved as well. And then I also wanted to include Ms. Johnson with manufacturing. She purchased a $15,000 lathe with those funds. So that's $30,000 of federal funds that have come into the district at no cost locally, which is a great benefit to our students. So she's done a wonderful job. Any questions?
Angela, do we wanna fill them in on our project that we are meeting about tomorrow?
You can.
So to try to make, I don't know, you probably know what we're up to, I would assume, but, we are going to pilot, well, not really pilot, cause we're doing it. People are going to be able to online register
Yes.
for a lot of these classes through our school. And we're hoping to get it set up so that it can kind of be a one-stop shop where people can register for activities for their older kids and then register their kids for community ed activities going forward. They can also pay online as well, and that is all set up and ready to go. So tomorrow, Angela and I have our first training with them to kind of see how things are going to work on that side, because it's something that I'm not completely familiar with. I'm just kind of familiar with our athletic scheduler and our, well, semi now familiar with the registration portion. So that's the other thing that we'll be working on. And it'll be hopefully starting tomorrow. And it sounded like they're building some sort of a site that comes with the program as well, that we can feature on our community website, so it's a little bit more accessible to people and they can understand things, so.
It should be great, and I know when we met this morning, Angela had a stack like this, and she said, this could be gone. With dollars and checks, and so, yes, so the.
And so far, I found it very easy, like going in my back end when people pay, like if they're not paying online, I still take cash and checks. They give me that, and I can go in and just say they paid, and I plug in a check number, and like, that's pretty much it. And then it shows, I can run reports that shows me if they paid, if they haven't paid, like, all kinds of stuff. So, I mean, so far it's been working great, so I'm hoping the same thing happens on the community ed side of it. Just a work in progress, so,
It's a big step, it's a good one.
very
Long
good.
time coming.
Try to keep Angela sane anyway, so.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions for Becky? If not, Sarah, transportation.
As of right now, I'm fully staffed, which is great. Last year it was a struggle, so I'm pretty happy this year. The DOT, I thought it went very well. We had 17 buses go through, 5 type 3 vehicles and 2 staff vehicles. And those staff vehicles are, one was a secretary at the elementary in case kids get left, and they can transport from the elementary to here to catch a bus. The other one, was Kim, so in case she has to transport, students, she can. We had 6 buses and 1 type 3 with minor things that we had to fix, and the DOT was here Thursday and finished up with the 2 that we did not get fixed, earlier. So everything is stickered now, and so we are good to go. The sports trips, we didn't have to cancel anything for fall sports. We had a lot of buses going out at some times. Mandy and I, talk a lot about any changes that were made through the fall sports session. And we talk about anything that will be changed for the winter one too. Activity route, we have 2. We have a sign up for 2 activity routes, Highway 48 and Finlayson. I only had 2 drivers that were interested in driving, one a type 3 and one a bus. So we have a type 3 going up to Finlayson, and the bus is out on 48. And we started October 3rd with those students, or those activity routes. I put on that this year for ESY or summer school, we had 4 bus routes, 3 type 3 routes, and then I put the dates that they ran. And we had 1 vision route, and this has happened every year where vision starts before we do, during the school year. Train the Trainer, both me and Dan attended Train the Trainer this year. This was a great chance for us to learn new information and connect with other colleagues around the state of Minnesota. Thank you very much for allowing us to go to that.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah?
What kind of numbers did we have for activity bus when we ran it?
Last month we had 40 total.
Out of how many days? Roughly?
Well, it's 4
Was
days
it
a week.
13?
Yeah, something like
Cause I
that.
put the days on the end of my spreadsheet.
And it's the same kids that are writing, we don't really have anything that's real different. I can help Sarah answer that, so.
Right.
And are they signing up, and if they don't have, or not?
Yes, they are signing up, and like, we've had a few that have already had their first strike because they're signing up and just not showing up, and like tonight, you guys probably don't wanna hear this, but we did have one, a parent called and said we want them on the bus. They go all the way out to the Highway 48 gas station, that was the only person that was on that bus tonight and did not show up. So, I will, and it's one of our foreign exchange parents, so she might not quite understand how that works, so either Sarah or I will reach out to her tomorrow. She was one that I think you must have added to the list.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
so, one of us will reach out to them tomorrow and kind of get a feel for what's going on and that kind of stuff, because we definitely don't want that happening. I mean,
Right.
you're bringing a bus all the way out there and then coming back to town with it and then taking it back out that way, so.
Yeah, we had 13 days last month, but I only think we transported 12 because we had one day where we didn't have anybody sign up, so we didn't run the bus that day, so,
Makes sense, thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Sarah. Next up is Mandy, athletics.
Well, we're just finishing our fall sports, and volleyball ended their season in the first game of the section tournament. They were the number 7 seed. We got to travel to Pine City, which is different than last year when we had to go to Esco, so that was kind of nice that it was close. We did lose them in 3 sets. We had one all-conference player, that was Sydney Krieger, and Anna Dagerstrom was our honorable mention player. This year we're losing 4 seniors from the team. Football ended their season in the semifinals of the section tournament in Moose Lake, Willow River. We were the number 4 seed, or we were 5-5 for that record. We're awaiting all the all-district players, and they have their team banquet on Wednesday. Volleyball had theirs last Thursday. Football will be losing 9 seniors this year. We had a big amount of kids that were out too this year for football, the biggest that we've had in a long time. Cross country, they really ended their seasons on high notes. The team had great finishes in the conference meet. We had 4 all-conference runners, Reese Hartle, Karina Tibet, Haley Geiger, and Autumn Pinovich, and 2 honorable mention runners, Colton Frailing and Lauren Tom. Many of them had personal best times at the section cross-country meet at Piers, which is a really difficult section and course. We run against a lot of private schools in that section. It's just the way that it's set up, so they did a really awesome job there. We're gonna be losing 5 seniors this year. Cheerleading, for the winter, we're going to have tryouts, and I think we're gonna have approximately 8 cheerleaders, that's what we have. It's a little bit more easy to manage that amount of people, and then we have, or kids, and then we also have, we know we have that much stuff, so we don't have to buy anything extra for cheerleading, like uniforms or anything like that. They'll just go to boys and girls home basketball games. I would have thanked these 2 before they left for being good seniors, and we're gonna miss them. They've been really good role models for all the kids the last 5 years that they've been here. Junior high basketball has begun. There's a total of 3 8th graders. Actually, that number has changed. There's actually 2 8th graders. Neither have played basketball ever in their whole entire life, so they're trying something new. So they're about at the same level as the 7th graders, and there's about 11 7th graders. The first game was today in East Central. I don't know how they did. Since the team is so small and inexperienced, we are only gonna be playing 1 game, 7th and 8th grade combined, and they're gonna be like 16-minute halves that we'll play, so they still get a little bit of extra playing time, but everybody will get that experience. Our co-op sports are underway. Girls hockey started November 1st, gymnastics started November 8th, boys hockey starts tomorrow, and wrestling starts on the 22nd. We have about 6 kids that are in these programs. I have one that was kind of on the fence. We don't have anybody for gymnastics at all, but we do have a new student that might be transferring in and is maybe interested in that. However, would not be eligible for varsity because of the transfer rule. They don't live in our school district, and there's a lot of rules when it comes to varsity sports and transferring and whatnot. She was supposed to start today, didn't come, so I'm guessing she's gonna stay where she's at. But I haven't seen her yet. Girls basketball starts, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I'm not. Girls basketball started today, and boys basketball starts on Monday of next week. We're in the process of meeting for the boys and then getting numbers figured out. Right now, when I counted on Rob's sheet today, there was 43 girls out in 8 through 12, and only about, in the big gym when I was in there today, I counted like 21, I think, altogether. So I don't know if there's another group of maybe some C-team girls, which would be 8th and 9th graders in the other gym, but at that time, I think they were all maybe together. But still a pretty good size number of, and boys basketball numbers are still looking the same. I had my winter sport parent meeting. We thought we'd try something new with some of the changes and with registration. And we actually had a pretty good turnout. A lot of them were parents and players, obviously, that their kids have already played. There's a few extras that showed up that haven't had a kid play, so it was nice to explain that registration portion to them because it's something new that we're not used to and used to that paper and that kind of stuff. I'm looking at doing it in the spring for spring sports as well, just to kind of get that whole rounded group there. And then I've also began the process of renewing scoreboard contracts. I'm still kind of in the middle a little bit. Me and Dave talked a while back, kind of have a plan for that, but I haven't gotten too far with it. I'm also working on moving banners to the other gym. That would be like the banners that are in their JAG gym, like our conference band, you know, that have all of our information on it. I'm trying to figure out where they came from, who I contact to get them updated, because I don't think, I know I don't do that, but I just gotta figure out where they come from. Joanne's working on that, and then also moving that, right outside in the cafeteria, outside those doors is a big, sponsorship banner that we're going to move, probably, to the space that's right above that visitor section of the bleachers that nobody sits, but then it's a good spot where everybody can see it, I think. And it looks like it just screws into the wall. But I'm kind of trying to give Keith some space and grace just because he's learning his new job too, and I don't want to overwhelm him with a whole bunch of stuff, so. He seems really easy to work with so far, so I just don't want to bombard him with a whole bunch of stuff. He's like, don't talk to me anymore or something, so. I don't want to be too bossy, I can't start bossing him around quite yet, so. And that's all I've got for right now. Oh, I did give the AAA award information out to the seniors, so there is some seniors that got emails from me with the application because they're doing it a week earlier, so I need to have that stuff turned in before Christmas break to our main guy in our section. So I started working on that and I got that all out to them on Friday, I do believe, so.
Any questions for Mandy?
I just have one question. For being there isn't as many junior high boys basketball, do we still have 2 coaches or just the one?
We do have 2 coaches. Sometimes it's just easier to manage. And like last year, Tony still was stuck with 30 kids. At the time when we hired all of them, we didn't know how many like when they both agreed to do this for this winter, we didn't know how many kids we had. And at the time, there was like 25 that had signed up, so.
How many 7th graders did we have last year that are now 8th graders this year?
That's a good question. I think I might have that actually in a spreadsheet. Let's see if it just pulls up and then it does not.
Or just a rough idea?
I know we had more than that. Well, last year we had close to 30 because Tony was all by himself with that many kids.
And they were all 7th graders last year?
No, so there was probably roughly 12 or 13, and there was like 6 of them that played on C-team also, besides that. So, if my memory is as good as it used to be. So I mean, we had some, but there's just not as many, you know, those kids now moved up, but then there's not as many 7th graders that are really, I don't know, wanting to participate, I guess you could say. Or 8th graders maybe, so like I should say 8th graders, like the 7th graders all came out and they're trying different things, but just not as many 8th graders as this year. Not really sure why, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
My only comment is to put the Great River Conference into Jake Pride, please.
A lot of copying and pasting. Okay.
Thank you, Mandy.
Yes,
Yep,
we'll
you're
get it there.
welcome.
Next up is board committees. Does anybody want to present their board committee from this last month?
I'll just say this about the teaching and learning committee, there was really good feedback, as Bonnie stated, from some of the experience in elementary school. It was good to hear.
I'm glad that they'll come to the board because I don't think we can probably show the enthusiasm that they showed at the meeting to explain the new curriculum, and I think all the board members would really enjoy it. Facilities, ICS tour, Dave, you wanna say anything?
Well, we looked at some blemishes and some things that were concerning. One was water leaks. They found it.
There was two specifically. There was one that was above the brand new gym entrance, that was coming from the fitness center bathrooms. That's been repaired. It needed the drain cleaned out and some caulking put in. And we gotta watch that drain, because what Keith has said is the way it was built maybe wasn't the best, but if we stay on top of the drain clogging, it should be fine. It hasn't been a problem since he feels he's fixed it. He's also, and he's gonna say this better than me, so I'm gonna fumble this up, but there was some leaking in the concession stand above one of the light fixtures, and he moved something above there, a different trap or door.
They put an elbow in.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it doesn't leak anymore, so those two leaks have been resolved.
And I guess the third thing was in the walking track. So we thought was the fit and finish.
Yep.
And
He's moved some salt up on the roof for that,
okay,
around that piping, remember
yeah,
we had that flood of 2022 this spring?
I don't remember, you should tell me about it.
He's put some salt up by that piping, so hopefully it doesn't freeze up like it did last spring.
well, speaking to that, you know, it's on the east side, through the roof is drains. So that's like the overflow when the internal drain doesn't work. So maybe there's snow and stuff builds up there and can't get out there, so that's probably something to look at in the winter.
And that was part of the problem last year, is that the sewer line had froze from underneath where the new addition entrance is to the high school offense. That line froze, and the city had to come in and aug that out basically, and once that ice blockage was removed, the water flowed, but
But that night when we talked with ICS and we went on the tour, he was talking about, well, there's the secondary relief, I guess, is that it runs off the side of the roof.
Yeah.
And there's downspouts on the east side for that, so, I imagine it's a maintenance thing to keep those open when it starts to thaw in the spring. So it can't back up so strongly as it did last year. So that was kind of an educational thing. And then the fit and finish around the walking track was just how it's made because of the products they use. They use big precast beams, huge, set with a crane. They just don't look like a cement block wall where they have that small of a joint. So it's just something we have to live with unless we want to put some kind of plaster wall on it to make it look pretty. So that's what we found out on our tour. Would you say that's about right?
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else?
PD, I know it's coming up later in the agenda, but the J credits, I'm trying to get teachers to utilize those more for retention is a good piece too, so we're trying to come up with ways to get teachers using them.
All right, we'll move on to new communications. Brian, was there any?
I did not have any.
All right, now we're going into the budget calendar.
Yep, so as you guys saw, the high school teachers made requests to the classes that we're gonna offer for next school year. Myself and Joanna are busy reviewing the levy, which I'll go through here in a little bit with you all, just to see tax impact, and start to present final options as we head into December when we will set our levy. I really wanted to start on the levy options, just to get some feedback. If you remember back in October, I presented very similar numbers. In fact, according to the state, as of this typing, our numbers had not changed from October to now. So based on these numbers, last year's actual levy was $2,474,575.95. As of today, if the school board decided to levy the max, that would be at $2,949,722.62. So again, as of today, that would be about an increase of about $475,000. That could certainly help our roofing projects, some other things coming up with federal dollars leaving. However, on Friday, as we were meeting with Ehlers, which is our financial institution regarding some of the roofing things that we talked about, they help us and dive into this, and they said one of the reasons our levy has gone up so much is really for two reasons. Yes, the tax or the homes are worth more money right now, but number two, when they looked at our, they call it resident average daily membership, which is basically the resident students in the district. So not all the students, but the kids who live in our communities. Those numbers are going down, and when that happens, we get more aid, because the state sees us losing they feel that we're losing enrollment, even though we're not, but they see the enrollment's going down, so districts don't have to go in massive cut mode or things like that. They offer some aid for that. Well, our enrollment's not going down, in reality. Yes, maybe our resident numbers are going down, but the numbers, for example, the numbers they have for 21-22, we were at 1,049 students. They project 22-23, which is this year, 744 students. We have, as we know, our October 1st numbers being 1,010 students. They've changed the so doing some research, and we're still doing some research. The way that it used to be done, this used to be calculated is going back to many superintendents, was count the number of students in the building, whether they're resident or non-resident. Well, the state has kind of changed their procedures, their reporting. They want just resident numbers now. So that changed last year. So as we were reporting it, and we feel we've reported accurately, our resident numbers, according to the state, are going down. So what that means, long story short, is the numbers that the state has right now are not changing unless we go say they're changing. I mean, they feel these are our numbers. So I don't anticipate, unless the district goes off and reports, which I'll get to that part, that this is gonna change much. When we talked to Ehlers, they said the board could decide to levy this max of $475,000, but the state would correct it. It always corrects itself, but it's always a year behind. So next year, when we get to this point, we could see some corrections in that levy, and it could impact us after this next year. So instead, and they said we could have this roller coaster effect for a little bit. So what Joanne and I are going to do is meet with Ehlers just to see, is there a slower progression, instead of dropping from 1,049 students to 744, and then they project after that 687 and 685, can we slow that progression down? What is the tax impact? What is the levy impact? I don't have that information yet, but that's some information I need to get for you all before we get to this point in December. We could, yes, even if we don't change anything, still say our levy could, if we decide to do the max, 475,000. We're gonna look and see what this option could be to kind of gradually do this, so we don't see such a roller coaster for the next few years on what our levy impact is, so we can have a more stable prediction as we go through the next few years. So that was breaking news at about 3:10 on Friday. Ehlers had a conference today, so we weren't able to get that information, but we will call right away tomorrow morning to see what their advice is, and hopefully get this information if we get to a possible special meeting later this month, for sure by the time we get to the December where we have to set our levy no matter what. And I'll update you as soon as I get that information. Questions on that? That's learning a lot in a very short period. Okay. Otherwise, we anticipate, remember we had primarily set the levy at its max back in September. Those should go out to the community. Oh, I should have had 11:15 here. We anticipate those going out this week, and Ehlers is gonna help us with our truth and taxation part of our December meeting, so we have all that accurate information for you guys to make a final decision in December.
Any questions regarding the levy? Next up are the four policies for approval. The first one is number 709, Student Transportation Safety Policy. Policy number 722, Public Data Requests. Policy number 903, Visitors to School District Buildings and Sites. And policy number 536, Social Media for Student Participation.
The first three we didn't have, I pulled those right from MSBA. The fourth one is a policy we've had. I just added some parts in yellow for if there are people who break the policy, so we have some procedures on how to handle that.
Does anybody have any questions regarding the four policies?
On that last one, did you were able to find any other?
I did reach out to
schools that use-
MSBA and I have not heard back.
Okay,
If I do, we could certainly come back to this, but I have not heard back from MSBA on
okay.
any model policies on this.
I have one on policy 709. It talks about bus drivers exceeding the speed limit. If they go over 15 miles per hour, it's considered, serious. Is 15 miles an hour too big a number?
Me and Brian talked about it earlier and we were thinking 10 maybe, because you can go 10 over to pass somebody,
Okay.
so I don't know. We were thinking maybe 10 would be a better number.
Okay, just 15 seemed excessive to me.
Right, yeah.
And I think Brian took that off the state recommendation.
Yep, this came directly from the state, so here's what Leo's talking about. It's kind of when, basically if there's a motor vehicle violation, other than a parking violation, that they would report that to Sarah, myself, and we take that from there. But what the state considered serious traffic violation was excessive speeding is what Leo's asking about, involving any single offense for any speed of 15 miles per hour or more above the posted speed limit. We could reduce that to 10 miles per hour if the board would like. This 15 was just simply what MSBA out had a model, what they had in their model policy. And I think when Sarah and I talked, we talked about if you're on the freeway going 70 and if you're over 50, we really don't want someone going 85 miles an hour, even if the posted speed limit's 30. We probably really don't want, especially when there's children on the bus, someone going 45 miles an hour either. When Sarah and I did talk, we thought if the board wanted to, we thought 10 might be a number that may fit in that policy.
It's probably not one that's ever used or hasn't in your career, has it?
No.
But it's just kind of principle thing.
Are you making a motion, Leo, to change that, or would you?
Yeah, I would like to change that to 10. Are we gonna do all of them at once?
We can, yeah.
Okay,
We'll take out 709. Well, does
No.
anybody
okay.
have any other questions on the other three? So then if you wanna make your motion, Leo, on 709 and correct it,
Okay, my motion would be to correct 709 to 10 miles and also approve the other three. Can we do that? So approving all four? Just with the one
With the
correction?
change to 709.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
This change.
Next up is the draft one of the school calendar for 20, I'll go back to Jake Pride. Does anybody have any additions to Jake Pride?
You want me to put in what Mandy had in here? I'm just gonna copy and paste.
And then after Wednesday, I'll get you the other peeps that go in there, Sarah. Or we can mention them next month even.
Did anybody have any other additions to Jake Pride? Now we'll move on to the 23-24 school calendar draft one.
So in draft one, the calendar committee did meet, all we took was this year's school calendar and put it on next year's calendar with the federal holidays. Just because, we wanted to try something, we did put a spring break in there just to see, what that would look like. But really, we just took this year's school calendar and put it on next year's with federal holidays. We are surveying staff to see their feelings on a full spring break, as if we did a full 5-day spring break, whether it was that week or a different week, it could push the school year into June. Right now, there would be an option to end the school year in May, depending on where breaks fall and where some of the staff development days are. Kind of want to see the feeling of the board and the staff to see if we want the school year to end in May, if we want to push it a little bit into June. But that's kind of really where that calendar is right now. I do need to still reach out to the East Central and Pine City school districts as we share so many programs there. And then we did put a survey out to staff last week just to see their feelings on a spring break versus more 3-day weekends in the spring. As you'll see in that calendar, there really is not a big break, especially when they get into the April and May months. And as a lot of people know, as you get into the spring, those breaks can sometimes come at a very nice time. So, and early indication on that survey is it's pretty split, 50-50, but kind of wanted to hear if the board had any feelings about at least starting end times, if you guys have feelings on spring break. This calendar draft does have Deer Day in it, as that was one thing that I've heard a lot from a lot of people, is try to put Deer Day back in. So we started with Deer Day back in the calendar and a current spring break in the calendar. So I don't know if the board had any input, as you'd like. We plan to meet again before the December board meeting to at least do a draft 2, but wondered if there was any input the board had in the early stages of the calendar creation.
Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Okay, graduation's on May 24th, is that a Friday?
That'd be a Friday, just so this year we're doing it a Friday, which when we surveyed last year, the senior parents, majority had said, let's try a Friday. We did talk about that. When the board typically approves the calendar, it's usually March or April, and we just thought we won't have lived through a Friday graduation yet, so let's keep it in there as is for the following year. Graduation's also something that would be easier to move if we do have a real bad experience with a Friday, but because we haven't experienced it yet, we thought let's put it in there for a second year. Then if we have some, bad experiences this year, we could certainly either come back or look to change it 2 years down the road. But we are starting with a Friday graduation planned again. Unless the board would not like to see that. Fair enough.
Is it a survey that can be sent out each year, so those
Certainly
the
could.
senior parents, whatever the majority is,
We certainly could.
unless it doesn't go on for
I'll show Miss Hinky that so she can survey her senior parents. Perfect. Thanks, Angela.
All right, next up is school bus and type 3 vehicle purchases.
So as the board knows, in about a 4-day time frame, we had 2 type 3 vehicles that did get into a car accident and were deemed totaled. Going into this school year, the district had budgeted for a school bus. In the capital budget, we did budget for 1 school bus, and the budget amount we put in there was $96,500. We have gotten a bid on a bus. Like a lot of things in our reality of the world, the price is up, and the price that came in on that bid is $127,000. And they couldn't tell Sarah and Dan how fast that actually could become in our possession if the board wanted to do that. Last time we got a bus, I believe the board approved it in March, and we didn't get it until November of that next school year.
And that bus was not the bus that we ordered? That was a demo bus that came into, Bluebird where we buy our buses from. He knew we needed a bus. When he did contact us, he would consistently tell us he didn't know when we would get our bus, so when that bus came to him, he offered that bus to us first because he knew we had ordered one. So when we got that bus, it had a lot more bells and whistles on it than we would normally buy. Cause for him it was a demo bus, so that's how we got the last bus, so.
Because we use those type 3 vehicles to transport special ed kids, it is part of their IEPs, it is part of our legal requirements. If we don't have those, we do have backup buses, but running buses and things like that becomes much more expensive than running type 3 vehicles. Talking with Sarah and Dan, they have felt, especially with 5 buses in reserve right now that have been DOT certified, that we could make it through the rest of this year without buying a bus and using some or that money to purchase 2 type 3 vehicles. We also have brought in, I have the number, about $20,000, $450 in insurance for the 2 vehicles. One was a little bit over $10,000, one was a little bit over $9,000, so we have a little bit of money there. But my recommendation would be not to buy a school bus this year and to use that budgeted capital dollars to use that to buy 2 type 3 vehicles.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah or Brian? I guess mine would be, even if we wanted to buy a bus, we're not able to put a purchase on a bus right now, is that correct, Sarah?
Correct, cause the price is higher this year. And Dan had to fight to get the estimate. He had asked for it, well, we asked for it right after we get approved. And because the prices were changing and fluctuating so much, Bluebird wasn't giving our dealer a price as well. So that's why we just got the estimate, was it last week or the week
Middle of
before?
last week, yep.
Yeah, so.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Sarah, what is our typical purchase history? Do we typically just purchase one bus a year on average, or?
Correct. In the past, it was 2 buses a year, then 1 bus. They would alternate. That was before I got this job.
Okay.
But after that, and I don't know when it changed before that, then we just went to 1 bus. So I know the last time we purchased, we had 2 buses one year and 1 the next. What happened was we ordered all 3 at the same time and we got a better deal. And so we paid for like 2 one year and then 1 the next school year.
Okay.
So I know we had done that, but typically now we just try to get 1 bus a year. But we had this unforeseen thing happen,
Right.
and now we don't have any spares. And the furthest out we go is, I think we go to Stanchfield and pick up a student. So that's a long ways to, I could manipulate to where a bus isn't going down there, but that's the furthest out we would go. And right now we don't have any spares, so if a type 3 does go down, then we would have to take a bus.
Okay.
And what are the type 3 vehicles you're looking at?
He is looking at Pacificas, which is the new minivan, cause they don't make Dodge Caravans, so he's looking at a Pacifica, cause their capacity is larger. I don't know, we don't know really what your recommendation is, if we get one of them and an SUV, or if we get 2 Pacificas. We do wanna get them different years, because we want to stagger the years, cause they all have a DOT expiration date of 12 years, so we can only have them 12 years, before they're out of service, so.
And so are you looking at new ones or?
Well, we could do one new one, I know we have a 2020 right now, if I get my VIN number, or if I put my VIN spreadsheet, I can tell you what we have now. Right now we have a 2020. Let's see. We have 2014, 2016, 2020, and 2015. So, in between any of those years, because we don't want a lot of them to be expired at the same time, because then we're looking for several in one year. And so we don't think that's financially responsible of us to do, so.
We'd like, at least my opinion, rather than getting too big SUVs, especially if one's gonna be a driver's ed vehicle, those aren't the most fun to parallel park, a Suburban or Tahoe, or, maybe get one bigger one smaller one, if we can't find two minivans, things like that. But for sure, I don't think two big ones, cause one of them's gonna be a driver's ed vehicle, and
Correct.
we wanna be fair to these kids as they're
Correct.
learning
Yep.
to parallel park and drive on the roads too.
Yeah.
Are you calling a minivan a big vehicle, or is that the small one?
I'd call that a smaller one than a Suburban or a Expedition.
Right,
It's still not fun to parallel park a minivan either.
And he has been looking for 10-passenger vans, but like the DOT is saying as well, cause we talked to him a little bit on Thursday, churches or smaller organizations are snatching them up like immediately, so he hasn't been able to find any 10 passengers. Cause we can do 10 passengers, we can't do any more than that, per the state guidelines.
Sir, are there any drawbacks that come to mind if we forego purchasing a bus this year and just delay it until next year?
I don't think there is. We have enough spares. Dan's been very on top of mechanical, part of his job. So I really think we can get by. In past years, since I've had this job, we've got by with less, so
Okay,
I'm very confident that we can do it.
good.
So if there's no more questions, I'm looking for a motion to
I'll make a
accept.
motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on. Does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the 3 new policies we will be approving next month that come to mind?
Yep. These are ones we have, just they're up for their review, so just a first read through these 3 policies.
Next up is streaming special board meetings.
So I was asked to put this up on the board agenda for consideration. Traditionally, we do not live stream special school board meetings. We only live stream our regularly scheduled board meetings. And just wanted to see if the board would like to change this practice. If you do, you could certainly change this into an action item, but just wanted to kind of see the feeling of the board on what you'd like to do for special school board meetings.
I think if we live stream our normal school board meetings, I think we should also live stream our special school board meetings. I don't see why we wouldn't want to. Just as an archive and for just to better communicate to the community what's going on in our school district.
Are they saved?
They are now, correct, Mrs. Snell? They're saved on the YouTube. I will try to speak correctly. They are saved on our YouTube channel. At least we can say that confidently since July. I don't know about previous, before this school year.
Toby, would you like to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we also archive our special school board meetings.
Is there a second? I'll second. So motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
I got one, Jody.
Oh, sorry.
So, if we do this, that requires Jess to come, right? So there's a extra cost involved?
I could do it,
Okay.
and we work with Miss Snell, she's able to come in either early or leave
Okay.
late, and she's a very generous employee and
Yeah.
working to be here. But if she couldn't, I know how to do it, otherwise I could teach Miss Scullard how to do it, she has
Okay.
volunteered as well. That last part was a joke, I know how to do it if Miss Snell.
Of course I did. Yes, Mr. Masters.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is meet and confer.
So as you can see, typically, the HFEA leader, president, and the superintendent meet at least, by past records, at least once a year. Mr. Richter and I did meet last Tuesday, and we talked about these following topics. We did talk about the high school teaching staff possibly having a flexible start time similar to how HES does. Mrs. Scullard has HES teachers kind of sign up for if they want to start at 7:30 and work to 3:30, or 7:45 and work to 3:45. And HFEA asked if we could look into doing this at the high school. Since Mr. Richter and I met, I believe this has gone out to high school staff as an option. We talked about some things as we go forward into budgeting and things like that, where if a coach who oversees maybe a smaller activity and does the driving in a type 3 vehicle, would the district be willing to look at those coaches getting paid as a driver during those portions? We talked about elementary special education teachers looking for some more prep and due process time, similar to what the high school gets. So the high school teachers currently get 2 prep periods for that. The elementary teachers get 1. The contract requires us to give 1. The way it's worked out in the high schools, instead of the high school teachers either having lunch duty or covering a study hall, they get a second prep period instead. So HFEA asked us to look at that. I know Mrs. Scullard has been looking at that. We've been talking about that on and off since at least this summer that I'm aware of. But we could certainly look at that. Coaches are looking for a coaching PD day. This has not been in the contract, but was past practice. It sounds like a long time ago, probably before both Mr. Richter and I were here. But it was a past practice. Wondering if a coach wants to take some training in their coaching area of expertise, if the district would consider that, allow that, be something where a coach could get more training in their sport or activity. And then lastly, what we talked about, HFEA was wondering about pay for junior high and senior high speech, meaning if there are students in both the junior high levels and the senior high levels, would the coach get paid for both? Yes, the coach would get paid for both. I know this happened last year, because junior high usually starts in October, runs till January-ish, then January to April, May is the senior high season. If the coach had kids in both, we would pay them a junior high and senior high season. Otherwise, I thought the meeting was very positive. I feel, Mr. Richter and I have always had a good communication, but I feel there is a good communication between the district and HFEA on things that have come up, whether it was the things in this list or other things that we talked about. Eric and I do meet more regularly than once a year. We're only required to do this once a year, but Eric and I at least meet monthly to talk about things that are going on between district and teaching staff.
Eric, do you have anything you want to add?
No, Brian wrote very detailed notes.
Thank you.
Word for word, no. That was very positive, so I appreciate it.
Does anybody have any questions, comments? All right, moving on.
We have received bids for snow removal, and again, I was glad that we didn't get much more snow last night than we did, as I know the board hadn't approved these yet. So for the Hinckley area, we received 2 bids. I asked Fulton Snow to bid twice. The first bid, we included a lot that we typically had not bid. If the board recalls, when our head of maintenance gave his exit interview, one of the things was talking about plowing and a lot of the time that he had spent outside. So we had added a lot to the bid just to see what the difference would be. The biggest lot difference is the high school staffing parking lot right out here. So that's the difference between, in Hinckley, the Volden Snow number 1, Volden Snow number 2. The first bid has the high school staff parking lot in it at $620 per time. The Volden Snow bid number 2, I had them take that out just to see what the difference would be. And then Finlayson only had one bid, our same company we had in the past with Beck Construction. It was the same price as years past. Our last snow removal bid, as you can see in here, this new bid is about $175 more due to gas, due to cost of living, things like that. I am making the recommendation of approving Volden Snow bid number 1 this year, and Beck Construction in Finlayson. So Volden Snow number 1 in Hinckley, Beck Construction in Finlayson. And the reason I'd like to pick Volden Snow number 1 for Hinckley is to allow our new head of maintenance more time in the building, so he doesn't have to be outside plowing as much. He's still certainly gonna be out there removing snow, but that was one of the big things Joe France asked us to consider, was trying to get them away from plowing as much so they could take care of inside the buildings.
Has Volden bid before?
Yep, that is our previous
Last
people
year?
who plowed here was Volden.
Okay.
It was Gerald Schmidt before, but now it's his son, or his grandson.
Oh, okay.
How many different bids did we get for Hinckley?
Just Volden Snow,
Okay.
and I had them bid a second time just to see the difference.
Does anybody have any questions? Any more questions?
And Joe used to plow some of the elementary lots as well.
And they still will, especially during the day, when, things are coming, or for sure the high school entrance parking lot, as we have events, things like that, that's still gonna happen. This will be more the overnight plowing, so that those lots can be cleared when staff come into work or students come in the next day. The head of maintenance will certainly still be out there moving snow and cleaning up, especially as we try to get to bus time and things like that.
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the Volden bid number 1 and the Beck snow removal for Finlayson.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up is additional J credit for staff.
So as Angela talked about, the PD committee has asked me to bring to the school board, and I agreed with the recommendation, an additional opportunity for teaching staff to earn credits towards lanes and licensure. So currently we have 2 opportunities, usually a summer and a fall. We'd like to add a third one during the school year where staff can earn another additional 0.67 credits. These are credits that are only good for teaching staff in our district, meaning even if we grant these credits, if they go to another district looking for a job, those don't follow them on their transcripts, things like that. It's a benefit for them staying here and getting some credits to move towards lane changes and things like that. Our contract does have some stipulations in there where teachers need to continually earn credits towards lane changes and things like that. And this is a way to have projects that impact our teachers, impact our students, and hopefully keep staff here. It's currently not a hit to our budget. It would be something that we could plan as we're going forward from year to year, as we know what teachers are working on, things like that. And I think it's a good retention, another good opportunity to get staff more lane changes, possibilities, and like to make the recommendation to approve a third opportunity during the school year to get those 0.67 credits.
And Brian, you said you don't have any kind of figures as to how that would impact the budget?
I don't, without necessarily knowing how many sign up for it. As Angela kind of said, we don't have a lot of staff who do sign up for those, probably 5 staff a time. And they have to get a lane change, they're set by either 5 or 10 credits. So it's gonna take a while for those lane changes to accrue anyway, unless they're doing some other classes. But we do know that record keeping happens every year, so I would know if they're getting to that point, so we can budget for that, as we go into the next budgeting, or the next school year in that budget cycle.
So could we request if they wanna do it, they would have to have it in by the time we approve the budget? So we at least can put it in the budget and have a figure?
We could certainly do that, or put it in the timeframe so it fits. The summer one, we usually know at least who signed up in time for that budget. Usually I think that comes in May, so the summer one would be the one that worries me a little, but I believe we have those signups happen in May, so we have know at least who signs up. They may not all complete it, but at least we could budget on the high end, assuming they're all gonna get there.
Cause how many credits does it take for them to get an intern? If they were just to do,
5 or 10, depending on where they're at in that contract. Typically it's 10, they go in 10s.
and they can do up to 3
3 times, so they could get,
times a year.
correct,
So it would take a few years for them
Correct.
to
if they just did this,
get a
correct.
lane change, if they
Correct.
just did. So it's not like it's something that would happen every year, it would take a couple of years for it to.
Unless they were doing some college credits or things like that.
And it's good for attention, cause they can only use these here, if they leave these.
So I'm looking for a motion to.
Tell me,
I'll second.
Additional third J credit opportunity. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next up, I gave you guys all a mid-year superintendent evaluation. This is how, we have did it in years past. I have been doing it for the past 2 years, even not as chair. If you would like an evaluation emailed to you, I can email it to you. I thought that, I do believe there is, usually there is superintendent eval at MSBA conference in January. So I thought if we did this in January, because our board meeting is before the conference, we would stick to the old way of doing it, and then if we wanted to switch or add or whatever for the year, 1 year, that we could do that at that time with more information from MSBA. But I do believe this is from MSBA from back when Kayla used to do it. So, does anybody have any questions?
When do you want these back then? In
So believe it or not, some people don't like to get those back, so I'm giving you a lot of time. So if I could have them back before Christmas, so let's say by the 23rd, you can either leave them in the district office for me, if you wanna hand write them, like Leo.
22nd.
Guaranteed.
Well, you can bring it in on the 23rd.
Oh, just.
So, is the district, you're here on the 23rd, right?
I believe so. Let me check. Yeah, I'm here on the 23rd. I don't have that day off.
So that or, email them back to me by the 23rd, please. And then what happens for those that are new, they get tabulated and everything gets put, where you write on the same question. Brian does get to see all the answers, your names don't go on them. Then at the January school board meeting, after the meeting, we'll go into closed session, without Brian, and we're able to talk about the mid-year evaluation, and then Brian comes back in, and then we give him feedback if you would like. Okay?
Doesn't sound terrifying at all.
It's not terrible.
Yeah. That sounds a little terrifying.
All right, next up is the possibility of a special board meeting in November.
Yeah, so back to kind of the rough conversation we were having at the beginning of the board agenda, when Joanne and I started digging into how we can pay for this or what we can do. Certainly there's a lot of moving parts with dollars we've already found. We talked about $100,000 that we've already found from E-rate and some other capital projects. We talked about $46,000 that the state's kind of giving us in new revenue, depending how much these two type 3 vehicles now cost, there could be a little savings in capital between what we have that 96,000 that you just approved, plus the 20,000 insurance. My hope is 2 vehicles don't come to that dollar amount, so there might be a little bit of more savings there. And then kind of finding out where we're at with this levies and if the board decided to do the max, how much additional money that could be. If everything stood the same right now and the board decided to levy the max, we could be looking at only maybe up to $200,000 problem, or we could be looking at a grand total of $657,000 problem, depending on how we want to work that money, or if the board levies the max, things like that. One thing that Ayler's recommended as a suggestion is the board could consider a capital facilities bond, where basically we would pledge, and they said it could be up to 7 years, we could pick the time frame. They would give us a loan per se that we would take out of our capital every year, so it wouldn't come from the taxpayers, it would come from our capital monies. We get $240,000 every year in capital dollars. We would already start with a dollar amount that we are pledging to cover the roofing projects. So say that was $50,000, I don't know what it would be, I'm just picking a number. Then we have about $190,000 left in capital monies for all of our other needs. We would have to act sooner than later on that if the board does want to consider that. As to do that, you have to be within 60 days of these bills being paid. Joanne is still working on finding all the bills, when they've been paid, so we know the exact dollar amount that fits in that 60-day window. You've just approved a bunch tonight that would certainly fit. So we may not, if the total that we hadn't budgeted for was $657,000 roughly, some of that was paid over the summer in small, as these bills came in slowly. You just approved tonight over $400,000. That's a big chunk of that. So we're gonna get that exact dollar amount. We're gonna get it to Ayler's with where those bills are. But wondering, does the board want to consider a possible special board meeting that, and Ayler's recommended the last week in November, as we would know kind of where interest is on this loan if we did this. We will know where our levy is a little bit closer. We'll have a little bit of time here, especially with a holiday in there, to figure out where some of this moving financial part is, so we can make a decision. Another option could simply be we just pay for it out of the fund balance. We do have the money to do that. Does the board want to just consider that instead of other options? But so I guess that's kind of where I'm at, is just because we call a special board meeting doesn't mean we could always cancel it. We could, we don't have to, or maybe we don't want to decide until we get a few more information from Ayler's. I have that call in tomorrow to find out our levy impact, to find out a tax rate for if we did a bond, to talk about the terms. There's a lot of moving parts still that I don't have, but I wanted to kind of see the feeling of the school board, at least at this time with the information we do have.
I would really like to see if we're, well, I'd like to see 2 things, the interest on the bond. And if our levy max is really $475,000 more, we would be roughly then at about $16,478. We'd be down to pay for the 2 roofs that we could take out of fund balance. But knowing that it's time sensitive,
And I will get those as quickly as I can.
And Brian, would it also be possible to study the logistics of using our existing unreserved general operating fund balance, and what part of that is unassigned?
And the hard part is, so we're in the middle of the audit. We will know that exactly at the December board meeting, but the December board meeting comes after the last week in November. But Joanne, those numbers we're in the process, it's nearing completion. I'll get you the best I can on the unreserved. It'll be unaudited at that point, but at least we think, as of right now, it might be a higher unreserved fund balance than we thought. We thought we started the year at 25.5%. That could be a little higher, is what Joanne's thinking right now. Even upwards closer to maybe we started this year at 28% fund balance, but we won't know for certain until that audit is complete. So there might be more fund balance than we thought, but it's still too early to tell.
It wouldn't help for this, but at some point, does the board want to discuss selling some of our land that we're not using? I'm talking like on the Tower Road, and then we have a bunch of land along the river with no access, but see what the value of it is.
40 or something west of Finlayson as well?
Well, that's being used
That's
as
the
a
school
forest,
forest.
so I would
Yeah.
not be inclined for that
We're
one.
using it for what?
School forest, and they send classes out there, I believe.
Yep.
So I'd be against that one, but I don't think we use the one out east, and then we own the,
The gun range.
yeah, gun range, yeah, too.
We do.
To get them back on the tax roll might be an option, I don't know.
I mean, obviously, if the roof had to be done, it had to be done, but then we would have accounted for the other things that were spent. We wouldn't have spent.
One question I have too for the board is what do you all feel about, since there was kind of a discrepancy in this whole construction thing with the Hinckley Elementary School roof and kind of being surprised with the bills coming in, do you feel like it might be prudent to just do a specific audit just to ensure to the community that all the dollars that have been spent were spent on construction or capital projects and everything is accounted for, just from a dollars and cents point of view? Since we did have irregularity with this project moving forward, kind of a surprise.
Won't our audit show that?
Do they look for that
I will ask.
specifically?
Yep, I will certainly ask. In the first time through, I guess I'm not positive.
They would do it, they would show it.
I would think it would audit done every year, you would think. That's what
Because
they
they go
catch.
through everything.
Yeah, it tells
Yeah.
us all the different fund balances.
I'll check with
Ask
Ayers
this-
if they have, about that specifically.
Yeah, if they could confirm that all the tax dollars out of the bond are accounted for, I think that would be great.
My only question is, I don't feel like, spending more money on calling a special meeting if we don't have consensus to go forward. So I think right now, I'm not comfortable calling a special meeting if we don't have the numbers, because we don't know if we're gonna do it. And I certainly don't think we should be paid, and then we all say, no, let's just take it out of the fund balance either, to be honest.
So Joey, are you thinking if we have the information to go ahead with a special or not even then?
I guess what I would like to know is if there's consensus to wanna look into doing a non-voter approved bond, then we have to call a special meeting. But I don't wanna call a special meeting if we're gonna vote it down and get paid for it.
You as the chair could call, we wouldn't have to set it today for sure. I mean, we would have to set it at least 3 days prior. So we certainly don't have to set it today. If I'm able to get some more information, hopefully even this week. I know with next week being a short week with the holiday in there, it's a little bit of a time crunch, but maybe if we can get some more firm numbers or more of an idea what the interest rate would be, what the levy could look like, if the state will even let us do some of those things, if we could answer some of those questions, maybe we know a better, at least more firm of numbers. Cause you could certainly call a board meeting as long as it's 3 days before, but maybe it's not prudent to do that right now without all the information either.
You're saying wait and call.
Just
them
we don't
later.
wanna miss that window, if that is something we wanna do. I mean, that's the only hard part is, we would need to call it in November to kind of be in that time frame of how, what the
But the
bills have been
si-
paid.
we have to call it within the 60 days, or we have to go through all the paperwork with Ehlers in 60 days?
When the bills were paid is what they told us.
It's like the 84,000 and the 391 is
What's
roughly
today?
like 470 something, but that's
Correct.
10/28, so 11/28, 12/28. So we just have to have a plan in place by 12/28.
Joanne was gonna go back and look and see what other bills had been paid in case we wanted to lump a bigger sum into it. In case we didn't, depending on how we find some other numbers, we just wanted to get all that information, where the bills were paid, how much it is completely, as some of those other bills may have happened last month, was part of the worry she had. I will certainly get firmer numbers on that, maybe that isn't as bad as it could be. Maybe today was the big day and the big starting point we wanna consider.
So is everybody fine with just waiting a couple days? And then
Yeah.
Brian's gonna get us all the information?
And you can call it if you need to.
Okay.
I just know that already that 2 of those days I'm not available,
What 2
Which
days?
two?
the 28th and 29th,
Is that a Monday, Tuesday?
Monday and Tuesday.
We'll begin working on it right away in the morning.
What about like a spending freeze?
We
Can
could
add that
certainly,
to
yep,
December's
we can
agenda?
certainly add that to December's agenda.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
Oh, just one question, Joey, when you're talking like a spending freeze, are you talking for like the rest of this year, this school year, or?
I was gonna say, he tells us no all the time. We're kind
Good
of
answer,
in.
good answer.
You know, however, we're gonna have
Yeah.
students that come in
Right.
with identified needs. I have one right now that we interviewed for today, who needs one-to-one parent support. So where does that, where do we fall in that?
I would think we'd have to fall, you know, she's talking IEP, if they have an IEP, that dictates more staff, you know, we can't break the law on that either. But any unnecessary, unbudgeted spending could be considered, you know, not approved. The part that our district does, most of that stuff is pre-budgeted for and then ordered in the summer. We do a heavy bulk of our ordering, majority of our bulk of our ordering in the summer months. So a lot of that stuff has already been purchased, is on deliver or has been shipped here. It's those other things that come up is kind of what we'd be putting a freeze on that wouldn't be legal, you know, legally required to buy or purchase or hire.
So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 8.